Imagine compressing all of Earth's biological history into a single 24-hour day. In that case, modern humans, Homo sapiens, would have appeared less than 8 seconds before midnight. In the grand scheme of life, we're incredibly new arrivals. Over that vast timeline, Earth has seen enormous change. Some elements have remained consistent, but others have shifted dramatically. If you could travel back to the moment humans first appeared, you'd find a world that looked nothing like the one we know today. At the beginning, early Homo sapiens lived exclusively in Africa, and they remained there for a long time. It wasn't until roughly 70,000 years ago that they began spreading beyond the continent, launching the migration that would eventually lead to today's global human population. During their time in Africa, they encountered a range of ecosystems and many fascinating animals, some of which no longer exist. Depending on your point of view, that might be either unfortunate or fortunate. While we often imagine Ice Age megafauna like saber-toothed cats or strange-looking stegodons, most of those creatures lived outside Africa. In fact, many of the famous prehistoric animals you might think of either never set foot in Africa or had vanished by the time Homo sapiens emerged. Africa followed a unique evolutionary path. Many now extinct species from the region look surprisingly similar to animals we still see today, though often larger or slightly different. One striking example is Paleoloxodon, an ancient elephant. At first glance, it resembled modern elephants, but up close, you'd realize something was off. This creature was a giant. Paleoloxodon includes the largest land mammal to ever walk the earth. Curiously, it also includes the smallest known elephant species. That's because the group had several species, ranging dramatically in size. By the time Homo sapiens appeared, only one species remained in Africa, Paleoloxodon recchi, living around 130,000 years ago. It wasn't the biggest in the group, but it was still enormous, likely a direct descendant of Paleoloxodon antiquus, which stood around 4 meters tall. Paleoloxodon recchi reached about 2 meters at the shoulders and weighed an astounding 15.3 tons. And its tusks? Absolutely massive. The tusk-to-body ratio in this group was the highest of any elephant, with tusks as long as some entire modern elephant bodies. Unlike today's curved tusks, theirs were straighter and angled downward, perhaps useful for digging up roots or scraping the ground for food. Adding to its fearsome presence were unusual skull ridges. These bumps served as muscle attachment points, reinforcing the tusks and giving the elephant the power to swing them with deadly force. Despite their size and strength, some scientists think early humans might have hunted these giants. While no direct evidence has been found, similar elephants were hunted in Eurasia using spears, and by this time, early humans had also developed throwing weapons like javelins. Still, hunting something that massive would have been rare and incredibly risky. More commonly, early humans likely focused on smaller, but still dangerous, prey, such as Cincerus antiquus, the extinct giant buffalo. Though much smaller than Paleoloxodon, this buffalo was no pushover. It was the largest bovid to ever live in Africa, growing up to 3 meters long and standing 1.85 meters at the shoulder, taller than most moose. And it was built like a tank, thick muscles, heavy bones, and weighing up to 2.2 tons, about the same as today's white rhinoceros. And the horns? Enormous. Each could reach over a meter in length, curving outward like a supersized water buffalo. Incredibly, they were even longer than the horns of some ceratopsid dinosaurs 3 times its size. To sustain their size, these buffalo needed vast amounts of vegetation. They likely lived in large herds and left clear trails across the landscape, paths that made tracking easier for predators, including humans. But even then, hunting them wasn't easy. Cave paintings across Africa depict these buffalo in intense battles, often head-butting each other in violent confrontations. In fact, Cincerus antiquus is the most frequently depicted animal in prehistoric combat art, hinting at its aggressive nature and short temper. It was also surprisingly fast, reaching speeds of up to 35 miles per hour. At that pace, it could flatten almost anything in its path. Despite their size, strength, and speed, both Paleoloxodon and Cincerus antiquus were eventually hunted by humans, or other human species. Yes, Homo sapiens wasn't alone. Contrary to the common idea of a straight line of human evolution, where one species replaced another, reality was far more complex. Around 300,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens first appeared, at least 4 different human species lived in Africa simultaneously. These included Homo naledi, Homo rhodesiensis, and Homo heidelbergensis. They likely didn't live in the exact same regions, but they were close enough that interactions, friendly or otherwise, may have occurred. Homo naledi was perhaps the most unusual. Much more primitive, it resembled early human ancestors like Australopithecus. It was adapted for tree climbing, not long-distance walking, and had a tiny brain. So far, no tools or advanced technology have been found linked to this species, and their worn-down teeth suggest a diet of tough, gritty plants scavenged from the forest floor. To early Homo sapiens, Homo naledi would have appeared very different. But Homo heidelbergensis was a different story. Found across Africa and beyond, this species closely resembled modern humans. They were about our height and had similar brain sizes, but their bodies were stockier and more heavily built, more like Neanderthals. They were likely physically stronger and used fire, made tools, built shelters, and even created early forms of art. They weren't scavengers either, they were skilled hunters, known to work in coordinated groups. One site in Kenya contains remains of more than 50 butchered Therapithecus oswaldi, a large baboon, showing a high level of organization. Some even suggest Homo heidelbergensis had primitive language abilities, based on studies of their hyoid bone and ear structure. Homo rhodesiensis, found in Zambia, may actually be the same species as Homo heidelbergensis. Both were intelligent, highly adaptable, and possibly interacted with Homo sapiens. Some researchers even think interbreeding occurred in sub-Saharan Africa, though this remains debated. While our interactions with other human species remain a mystery, there's another intriguing creature worth mentioning, one that was both terrifying and bizarre, Dinopithecus, or terrible ape. This baboon-like primate was larger than a human, weighing up to 77 kilograms, with a powerful build and huge skull. Its canine teeth were 20% bigger than those of modern baboons. Unlike today's grass-eating baboons, Dinopithecus likely ate fruit, and possibly meat. It was an opportunistic feeder and may have preyed on smaller human species. Fortunately, Homo sapiens were likely too large and well-equipped to be targeted. But just knowing such a creature existed is unsettling. Finally, one of the strangest animals to coexist with early humans was Rhizingorix, sometimes called the dinosaur wildebeest. At first glance, it looked fairly normal, with a long neck and hoofed body. But its skull contained a trumpet-like nasal structure, something never seen in modern mammals. This feature resembled the crests of hadrosaur dinosaurs, especially Lambeosaurus. Scientists think this structure evolved for sound communication, allowing Rhizingorix to produce deep, possibly infrasound calls, too low for human ears to hear. This would have been useful in large herds spread across wide plains. Both hadrosaurs and Rhizingorix had similar teeth for processing tough vegetation, which may have shaped the evolution of their skulls in similar ways. While not dangerous like Dinopithecus, Rhizingorix remains one of the most unusual animals to have lived alongside our ancestors.